Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours with Michael Kitces. So a few weeks ago, I did an Office Hours segment talking about the challenge for younger advisors in overcoming age bias. You know, that challenge that you get into as a younger advisor where you're trying to sit across from a client and gain their trust, and they're looking at you like you could be their grandchild, and it's kind of hard to build trust when they're seeing you in the same category as their grandkids. So I'd offered some suggestions. There was great discussion in the comments about how young advisors were overcoming the age bias from clients. But I also got a lot of feedback from some of you who are experienced advisors at the other end of your career who made the really good point that age bias isn't just a young advisor thing. I mean, frankly, historically, we tend to talk about age bias and age discrimination against older folks. That's a protected class under law. Sort of the irony for financial advisors, it feels like age discrimination is primarily against young advisors. So we almost have this reverse age discrimination back to more experienced advisors. But I got a couple of good comments from this. So sort of the quintessential one I got from Don. I'll read Don's comment here. Don had said, "I'm age 67. I've been a financial advisor since I was 23, so I've lived through all the age bias when I was young. Now I'm living through age bias against me from prospects that are under 50. Sometimes I feel like anyone under 50 that looks at me as though I'm going to drop dead any minute. Do you have any tips for overcoming age discrimination from clients against older advisors like me?" So great question, Don. First, I guess I should say I'm glad to hear you're at least so young at heart, not only actively working with clients, but still taking on new ones at the tender age of 67. I would frankly, I think it's just a great reminder that being a financial advisor is one of those professions where you can do it far beyond the traditional retirement age. It pays a good income, especially if you're experienced to build a client base. It's mentally stimulating. It's psychologically rewarding, given all the close relationships we make with our clients. And I'm the guy that's been pounding the table for years saying that this whole succession planning crisis that the profession is facing was going to turn out to be a mirage, because so many advisors that were supposed to retire soon aren't going to, because it's too good to stay active as an advisor, both mentally and financially. Now, notwithstanding that, the challenge still is that this is a relationship business. And so being an older advisor, or I'm going to call it a retirement-aged advisor, since older itself is kind of a judgment-laden term, and I don't mean to use it that way. But being an advisor that is, shall we say, old enough that you could be retiring yourself is still a challenge in a relationship business, because clients are coming to work with us for the long term. Most of us build long-term financial planning relationships. That's kind of the focus of what we do. And it's hard to be a long-term advisor when you're already at the age of retirement as an advisor. As Don had said, clients are concerned that you're not going to be with them in the long run. And I have to admit, I think this is a legitimate concern. Even for someone who's a client who's entering retirement can last decades. If you're already retirement age yourself, clients have to go through the legitimate concern about whether they are going to outlive you as their advisor. And certainly have to worry about whether they're going to outlive how long you decide to remain in practice, either whether you can, whether you're alive, whether you're physically able. For younger clients, Don was talking about those under 50, so Gen X and Gen Y clients, now it's not even just a question of whether the advisor is going to outlive their retirement. It's whether the advisor is even going to still be in practice when they get to retirement. So I think there's a legitimate fear from clients who come into this situation saying, I don't know that I want to invest all this time and effort and energy into a financial advisor who's that experienced when they may retire soon or have something happen to them, and I'm going to have to start over in a couple of years. Right? It's very stressful for a client to say, well, I'm going to have to start over with the advisor every couple of years if I keep picking experienced advisors who are close to retirement themselves. And frankly, this isn't even unique to clients. Regulators now are getting involved with this. So NASA, the North American Securities Administrators Association, put out a model rule last year requiring state-registered investment advisors to have continuity plans so that their clients just aren't left like dust in the wind if something unexpected happens to them. Now the SEC is putting a new proposal forth under Rule 2064-4 to do something similar. And frankly, I know a lot of advisors in their 30s and 40s who in part fight the younger advisor age bias by actually saying to clients, well, don't you want an advisor who's actually going to be around for your entire retirement journey? But they use their younger age as an advantage to say, well, if you work with that older, more experienced advisor, they may be older and more experienced, but it also means you're going to have to ditch them and find someone new in a couple of years because they're going to retire. So how do you handle this as an existing experienced advisor like Don? So I think you do have a couple of options. Number one is you adopt more of a team-based financial planning approach within your firm, and you start building a succession path. So you hire a younger paraplanner or an associate financial planner. You start serving your clients as a team. Now, from the client's perspective, this begins to introduce continuity for them, right? Because it's not just you anymore serving the client. It's you and this other advisor who's sitting in second chair. So at least if something happens to you, the client still knows there's someone to call. There's someone to help them. And whether you make it explicit or not, the implicit message to the client is there's a succession plan in place, even if this original advisor I started working with retires or something happens to them. So the idea is to recognize that we talk a lot about succession planning from the perspective of advisors just trying to get the value of their practice. I want to have someone to sell it to so I can get my check for all this value that I built. But it's not, succession plan isn't just about getting the value of your business. It's a key benefit for clients. It's a key issue for clients. It gives them confidence to work with you that you'll be there for the long run, because it may not be you personally, but your firm, your business will be there to serve them in the long run. I mean, that's the whole essence of what it really means to build a business that outlasts you, and recognizing that if you're going to have a long-term relationship with clients, clients want a relationship with a business that may outlast you, particularly if you're a more experienced retirement age advisor for yourself, and the client legitimately has to wonder, are you going to retire before I do? Or are you going to retire before I'm done with my own journey? Now, frankly, I think it's even more important if you're still looking to grow the practice, which John is he's talking about. This is a challenge with prospects, new clients who are under age 50 and concerned about his age. So if you're a growing practice, it's especially conducive to have a paraplanner on board or an associate planner so that they can actually move up over time and begin to take over some of those clients even before you retire, but certainly be experienced enough that when you retire or if something happens to your health, there's a continuity version for clients. Now, the next option about addressing this kind of age discrimination dynamic against more experienced retirement age advisors is, at least if you don't create a full succession plan, which means you bring in the young associate and you bring them up through the ranks, at least have an exit plan that maintains client continuity. So as I mentioned earlier, this is frankly already becoming a requirement for state registered investment advisors with the NASA model rule last year, soon going to be an SEC requirement as well. And the regulators aren't requiring a full succession plan. Go hire a junior planner and transition your business for them. That's an option, but not a requirement. But what they want to see is at least some way to ensure a smooth exit, particularly if it's an unexpected exit, i.e. you have a health event, so clients aren't disrupted. Now, frankly, in the past, there weren't a lot of solutions for this because most firms that would, other firms that would help you out with this generally said, we'd love to do this. We'll buy you right now, even if you didn't want to sell yet. Or they'd say, we'll tuck you in and you can become an employee, which if you're an independent advisor, particularly if you've been one for decades, most of the time you have zero interest in being a tuck-in. It's hard to go back to being employee when you've been independent, self-employed for years or decades of having built your own business. Now, the good news is there actually are a growing number of what I'd call pure exit planning solutions. So Focus Financial does a version of this where they'll pair advisors to one of their other local firms. They call it their Focus Succession Partners solution. So you get paired up with a local firm in your area that's larger than you and could acquire you, but you don't get acquired now. They sign a contingency deal that says if you pass away or retire, they execute the purchase. So you get to keep staying in your practice until, by fate or circumstance, it ends. Our, frankly, Pinnacle Advisor Solutions has a similar option. Our team calls it Prism, but similar. You sign an agreement with our firm that says in the event that you pass away or have a health event, we will buy out your clients and continue to serve them and give them the continuity. So your clients know they're not just dust in the wind if something happens to you. Now, to be fair, it's worth recognizing with these exit planning solutions, if you don't sell your business to the last minute, you probably won't get top dollar. So there's a question coming in from Andy: is the payout lower than typical? Yeah, you're not realistically going to get top dollar. Or actually, what happens for most of these deals is they're done on an earnout basis. So if all of your clients really do transition to the firm after you pass away, you're probably still going to get a very competitive price. But realistically, it's harder for you to transition all your clients if you're not there to help transition your clients. So the payouts will likely come out being a little bit lower in practice. The bulk of your clients may still utilize the continuity solution, but probably not as many as if you were hands-on facilitating an acquisition. But the caveat from the flip side is you continue to get the income checks from your practice each and every year as you're going on, which frankly, for most advisory firm owners, particularly if you're a profitable solo, is going to net you more money anyways. I've long maintained, one of the primary reasons why more solo advisors aren't selling is you go and look at the math, and what you could get for selling your practice is usually what you make every 2 or 3 years at the most, sometimes shorter. So if you could sell your practice or stay in it for 2 more years, get the same money, and then still own the practice 2 years from now and you could sell it then, not very many people sell. But at some point when you can't do it anymore, it's nice to get a terminal value, especially if you can also demonstrate the continuity for clients so you can continue to grow and keep clients on board in the meantime. And I think that's where these exit solutions fit. Now, the third option I think you have, my last idea for how experienced advisors who are retirement age and struggling with age discrimination from younger clients, is consider a different kind of business and service model. So as we've talked about, I think the fear for most clients in hiring you for an ongoing relationship is that they're not certain how long you're going to be around and part of that relationship, either in Don's terms, because they're afraid you're going to drop dead, or even just that they're worried you're going to retire in a couple of more years. Now, relationship-based financial planning is certainly where most of us focus, but it's not the only kind of financial planning. There are planners out there that do financial planning on an hourly and project basis. They use their expertise, they answer the questions, but it's more transactional. Clients come in, ask their question, you share your expertise, your knowledge, your wisdom, command a healthy hourly rate if you're an experienced advisor, get paid for your time, and move on. Now, from the perspective of the potential client, this takes away a lot of the relationship risk dynamic, because they're not engaging you to be their ongoing manager for the next 17 years. It's a transactional engagement. Hey, I'm trying to figure out when to take my Social Security. I just need someone to help me through that decision, and you can work with them and get them an answer to that. So they're playing you for more transactional engagement. They buy your time, your experience, your expertise, your wisdom. They may repeat those questions over time, but you don't have the same kind of relationship risk, which means your age should be, frankly, even more of an asset and less of a blocking point if you're engaging clients in a business and service model that's meant to be more limited in scope than I'm going to work with you indefinitely, even though I'm not going to be here indefinitely. But the bottom line is simply that if you're doing long-term relationship-based financial planning, I do think clients have a right to ask the question, what happens to our financial planning relationship if something happens to you? So you can address that in a couple of different ways as an advisor. You can establish an internal succession plan with a paraplanner and associate planner. Clients are served by a team, which means it's less risky for the client if something happens to you. You can sign an exit continuity agreement with an outside firm, Focus, Pinnacle, more and more out there are doing it, so that if something happens to you, your clients get continuity. And the point of these deals is that you tell the clients up front, you may be working with me, but ultimately I'm backed by a much larger firm, Pinnacle Advisory Group. They have $1.8 billion and they've been doing this for over 20 years. And if something happens to me, there's a whole team of 50 back there to make sure that you get the continuity and that you're not harmed in any way, even if something happens to me. And just address that fear for clients up front. Or you can shift your business model and who you serve and engage in more transactional financial planning, focus hourly advice, project advice, and find other ways to serve clients in meaningful financial planning that doesn't take on the scope of this long-term relationship dynamic that they're concerned may not actually happen. So I hope that helps a little, some food for thought. This is Office Hours with Michael Kitces, 1 p.m. East Coast time on Tuesdays. We got started a little early today because unfortunately I've got a conflict at 1, but thanks for joining us. Hope this was helpful and have a great day, everyone.